Howdy, fellow skeptics. Lester the Skeptic Tank here. Last day here in Idaho. I just completed a weekend course in immediate action medical offered by Tactical Response. And all the classes I've taken through them. Eye-opening, humbling, many lessons beyond the text and the lecture, especially when you throw in scenarios into play. Immediately come to mind, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but be prepared to learn about relying on what is termed as body feel. Put it that way. I think I learned that also in the fight, but I think in fighting pistol as well. I may not have seen those lessons as clearly, but especially when the stressors and the adrenaline starts pumping, you gotta start relying on your peripheral vision. Uh, and that's one thing. That stuff I'm talking about. These are things that whether you're talking about just your run of the mill martial arts, because I just dawned on me maybe a few years ago when people think of martial arts, they think of things out of Far East Asia, kung fu, taekwondo, karate, the myriad of ones from Japan, myriad of ones from China, myriad of ones from Korea, Thailand, even my country of origin, the Philippines. But as of my friend Dr. Pepper just put out, um, he put out a workshop, Gunfighting 101, the American martial art. I can always look back at his advertisement for the class, but something along those lines. And the late James Yeager of Tactical Response had echoed this. He echoes this throughout his material and his recently released book. I don't know if it was posthumously published, but I know it's been in the works. But he also echoes that in that book. Um, a lot of people will wonder, particularly because uh, the class I'm in Idaho, but I also went to Tennessee, like you might have seen in my previous videos. I went to their home base in Camden and hung out hung out in the team room. Worthwhile experience, if I might add. And if you're a dude, it's a dude's room. You'll know what I mean. Um, so why go to specific instructors? And then particularly my being a martial artist, I'm going to try to put this as coherently as possible. I know that many will say, well, anybody can pull the trigger. Sure, anybody can pull the trigger, but can they pull it under control? Can they pull it accurately? Can they pull it safely? Um, so a lot of the people that talk about that tool, and I love how, and I think it might have been in one of his previous videos, Yeager's videos, where he posed the question, and I might get the question wrong. I don't know it. I don't remember it verbatim, but it essentially asked, "Are you the weapon, or the tool, or a tool?" And so we need to get away from this mindset. And this is something I learned from my computing education back in my senior year of high school, which was 1999. And my high school teacher at the time, he put it straight up and various principles in. This is why I haven't personally pursued computing certifications because maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Maybe I may end up pursuing it. Just, you know, kind of build up my portfolio. But he said the computer is just a dumb machine. And I think that's pretty much with any inanimate object. Um, so the, I remember my discussion when I was doing JKD like very dedicatedly. We always had the saying that it looks simple, but we always had the counterpoint. But it doesn't mean easy. There's another word for that, basic, right? So going back to that point, well, anybody can pull it, sure. But again, going back to the question, can they do it accurately? Can they do it safely? Because if you um, really want to know what it means to be properly trained, uh, they do post in various ranges, at least the ones I've been to. There are 4 cardinal rules of safety when it comes to handling a tool like the one I'm referring to. And very important ones. They're all over the internet. I don't my channel. I may talk about topics, but I'm not. As you can tell, based on the content I have, I'm not that kind of channel. I may bring up that kind of topic once in a while to draw a greater point. So, in attempts to be coherent and I don't know about thought provoking, but again, bringing up perspectives. That dumb machine, the one containing the trigger, is just that. It's something that I've had brewing in my mind as far as smartphones. Okay? They're just dumb machines. It takes a user. And I remember Chris Perillo years ago, I think when he was more into phones, I think if I were to go back to his channel, I don't think he was about the phones. I mean, in certain degrees, yeah, because I kind of take my cues from him because at a point, you know, you learn the basics. So again, why tactical response? Because they take you beyond the tool. They have so I just completed what would be described as the trifecta. There is a class called the trifecta. I didn't do it that way. I did my classes a la carte. So I did fighting pistol, which is the first class to take. Um, yeah, there I said it. Fighting pistol. Okay, I took that class because it trains the mind. All right, it's going to train the person because it takes more than someone just holding that mechanized tool. So when you talk about tools of the trade, you have your, I don't know if I call it organic tools or humanistic tools, humanoid tools, or non-mechanized. I guess if I want to do the direct comparison, mechanized versus non. Okay, being a martial artist, and this is so. What I'm trying to get at is as you grow and as one progresses, and using that loosely, especially for someone like myself, my progression is more based on my priorities. When I did JKD, if I were to be frank and honest, a percentage of that was because okay, what's the deal with this art? Why did people? I didn't know this until I actually came in contact with the JKD world at the time. Many people historically have I don't know if they left jobs, but I know if I listen to folks like Dwight Woods, these people would flock over all over either the U.S. or even the world. They would go to L.A. because they were in search of this. So part of my priority at that time was that because it still intrigued me. Um, but I also knew that based on the literature, the interviews I've watched, the other half, which is at that time anyway. So my time frame's around '02, '03 when I started getting to that world. And so my priorities were along those lines where I wanted that double take where, you know, I guess in retrospect it was part of my bucket list and I can check it off. Not that I was gonna stop JKD. I was like, okay, I'm good. That didn't cross my mind as to like, okay, I'm good. I want to go move on to the next thing. No, it was partly personal because something happened. Um, I will not go any. I will not go into further detail. But all the while, my friend Dr. Pepper, he became a cop, and because of his scheduling at the time, he I was just doing my thing. We had a capable group of people who led the training group in LA Chinatown at the time. When he came back, when his schedule allowed him to teach on Sundays, and there were talks about it. He was also about practicality, and I think even on as a kid, that was my thing. That was my priority. Like, not that I wanted to do people in or be a rope beater. So going back to tactical response, it's just when I look at my overall development, priority development, it's like I need to train what I need to train because I have these new priorities. Or at least the priorities I've had for all this time, they've kind of been expanded upon. They've been developed. They've been nuanced. And this is just talking with people, having conversations. And that's the other thing too. When people talk about the other thing I'm learning is, or I've been learning, is teaching and the lesson. Because what you're being taught is what's on the page, what's being presented to you via lecture, whether in person or in video. The lesson can be explicit or it can be implicit, whether we're talking about, again, like in my case, role playing scenarios. So I'm going to try to, this is probably going to be a part one because I'm looking at my counter, running a little long. And apologies for any type of rambling I'm doing. I still got to pack a little bit. I got most of my stuff ready, but still need to zip up the bag. But that required I put all my stuff in the bag. All the stuff I know I'm going to put in that bag to check it in. Anyway, so it's all about this paradigm um, as far as tactical response and in other places like-minded wise. So going back to that tool, anybody can teach someone that, and I would say this about a lot of the martial arts. And the thing about tools is they're only a means to an end. So and this is something that Dr. Pepper brought up all the times I've worked with him on in JKD is uh, there's the tool and then there's the technique. Tool is just simply the way I deploy in the empty hand sense anyway. All right, I'm going to see if I can make a clear description of that. So a tool, like that's a tool. Just simply a punch, whether we're talking like that or we're talking like that, that's a tool. The way that tool is applied in a dueling context, for example, whether someone is throwing, say, for example, so I'm gonna try to use some terms. I'm gonna try to use some terms that might be familiar, maybe not familiar to many, but match leads versus unmatched leads. Okay, I'm gonna say match leads. Okay, say the person is throwing a left in match leads, and I'll say they're standing orthodox, or doesn't matter, um, because at least in JKD we use terms, and I think boxing does as well. We're straight, lead straight. So from a match leads, so it doesn't matter if someone's standing right right side forward, left side forward. In JKD we are about strong side forward. Okay, so what I'm going to try to explain and illustrate slightly, got my phone in one hand and my free hand doing that. So, for example, let's do a simple example. The term cross, and this was like a sort of epiphany that cross is just a way to use your rear straight. In that, technically, a cross is to cross someone's jab. That's a technique. That's the way you deploy your wrist straight. So, that kind of stuff. So, all these principles I'm learning, and that's kind of coincided with my computing. And that's one of the reasons why when you get these foundational lessons, you think more principally, and that's the other one I get from uh, Misty, Misty Sierra. I'll call him that. That's my other friend. Okay. He, it was funny because I had this upbringing with two guys. One was practical, that'd be Dr. Pepper. Not saying Sierra wasn't. It's just that he thought more on the abstract, and I appreciated that, having the best of both worlds. So it's like got to think more principally, and it's really interesting. It's a higher level way of thinking beyond wax on, wax off. You know, for all the humor one may get out of wax on, wax off, but if you think about the idea of using your strong side forward, and the way those two presented that, it wasn't super literal. Okay? So that's the other thing too. Like when I say that anybody can be taught, sure, you can go anywhere and learn whatever, taekwondo, karate, judo, anybody can teach it because those are the skills. Now going back to Yeager, I'm going to try to tighten it, but again, this might be a multi-parter. So going back to Yeager, he has his pecking order, and I think I posted in my team room video or in my community post. I'm still getting used to that feature, by the way. But if you pick up his 4 pillars of fighting, which are and it's all over his videos on YouTube, and he'll explain why mindset is number one, and it's very true. And I look at it from the sort of, well, you had to start from something, and then everything will. Because Bruce also had this quote that was I think he's the one who said it. I'm now using attributed to Bruce Lee just because plagiarism wasn't, dealing with plagiarism then wasn't the way they deal with it now. So the quote is, understand the root, you understand all of its blossoming. So at the root, mindset, 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 and then tact. Let's see, one skill. Oh, let me go ahead and see if I can whip out the book. Wait, I don't think I brought it. Oops. But it's a mindset, tactics, skills, then gear. I'm just doing this off my head. But basically, once you get the mindset right, everything will follow. Just like the book that I've been reading on and off for the number of years, The Score Will Take Care of Itself. Well, The Score Will Take Care of Itself by the late Bill Walsh. Okay? So, get the mindset right. You notice how I think I said at the very last gear, and then skills is above gear, but see, gear is the last. So when you talk about tools, or especially the mechanized tools, you know, when you look at product procurement, and this is a line from his book, Four Pillars of Fighting, which had supplied me the answers I should have been using in my second class, the fight. Because especially after the debriefs, I was like, oh my god, the answers are right there. Um, he said something that the tool isn't to be comfortable, it's to be comforting. Meaning that, and this is something that Bruce echoed, like, truth isn't about choices and fancies. So when it comes to that, and especially when I talked about baseline, what's your priority? And Dr. Pepper often poses this question to me: what's your end state? So it's like, what's my end state? What am I looking to, like, what would prepare me, especially based on the priorities that I've come to? So mine has always been practical self-defense. Some people like to use the word self-preservation. Okay, that's fine. But I think Ramsey Dewey said it very nicely in that self-defense is a legal term. So it's like people get so hung up by the tool, the means to an end, versus what the ends. And no. I know people say, what do you mean? Do you mean that the ends justify the means? Yes, depending on the context. So again, why tactical response? There, it's easy for people to, when they say, well, how many cartridges do you guys utilize? Well, for fighting pistol, we use between 750 or 1,000 rounds, and apparently that's unheard of for certain classes. Okay. But it's not so much the fact you shot that many. It's about what you were being taught during each. And I don't know if tactical response uses the term evolution, but I'll use it. And I apologize. I don't want them to mean if that's not the correct term they use, but okay, each drill. So yeah, you learn some skill, but like with any empty-handed martial art, um, anybody can go to anywhere. Anybody can go anywhere to learn a skill. If you, but at the same time, and I'll give Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu this: they don't run a belt factory. You earn your belt. I can go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, and there may be things that may not be that may not be workable around the paradigm I'm training for, but I can go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, and I would say I haven't run to a crappy one yet. However, the that community did it, they did it right. Now, not every school will train or offer subclasses where they would focus more on the practical side of things. So where I'm getting at is how to skillfully use the skills in the right context. So again, going back to my priorities, um, I will post something similar. I don't know if it's going to be like in the second part, third part, whatever. But all I can say is once you think more principally, what you will train will be based on what principles or what priorities you are looking for. And that will speak for themselves, and the drills will speak for themselves. So, again, going back to Ramsey Dewey's point about self defense being legal, and this is something I learned very early on before I even got involved with trigger pulling, or shall I say, triggering. I was exposed to this component of unarmed self defense when it comes to, like, well, you can use your martial arts and you might inexplicably find yourself in jail. Not for weeks or months, maybe for life. So, working within that framework, that sets the tone for the direction, and that's always been hanging over my head. Well, going back to my friend's exposure to what he was introducing to us when he got back from his hiatus. And again, I know it may seem like I'm rambling. Apologies for the incoherency if there is a good deal of it. um, Even when we were doing JKD, he was very clear if he was going to introduce something that was not JKD. And yes, there is a definitive description of what JKD looks like. Not just from the principle or philosophical perspective, but from the technical aspect, the execution, the mechanics, because it starts from a very specific stance. Okay? But there were times when he would introduce to us ways of dealing with knife defense, and so that kind of set the stage. So going back to so tactical response deals with that in a very holistic fashion with fighting pistol, and the way James presented that material, it it covers everything you would need to know, because whether you're using your mechanized tool or your non-mechanized tool, you still have to contend with the the pre, the actual event, and then the aftermath. You still have to deal with that, and the way he puts it out there, no other trainer would lay it out the way he did. In either the class or the book, Four Pillars of Fighting, he puts it out there in plain writing. this is this is what's gonna happen, and I don't know if anybody else brought that to light. Not in classes I've. Uh, it's a total paradigm that you have to work with. Um, all right, I'm gonna try to gather my thoughts. So I know I talked about doing my action medical, and yeah, I completed the trifecta, and I know it went a little bit roundabout. I hope not too much. But I want to try to keep this thought piece, I want to keep it around 30 minutes or so. So until the next video, and especially since I got to prep and charge up my phone for my trip. All right. I don't know if I'll get this uploaded today. Because, well, I don't know. I don't know how long it will take to upload via the hotel Wi Fi, but we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. Skeptic Tank signing out. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Hope to slog through my flight without an issue, and then we'll go from there. All right. Catch y'all later.